tick past the hour, I think we'll get started. So welcome to everyone who's joined us for today's session, where we're going to be talking about how to use stories to supercharge your sales and grow your business. And I hope that if you've joined any of the other sessions today on the first day of this event, Turn Up the Wow, I hope you've enjoyed them. This is going to be our final one for the first day, and it is a really exciting session with an awesome guest speaker. Before we get into a brief intro, I just wanted to remind you that this session is being recorded, so if you want to revisit any of the information that Sarah shares afterwards, you'll get the recording of that tomorrow morning on email. And this is a half-hour session, but we're hoping to save sort of 5 to 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So if you do think of any questions as we go through, just pop them in the question box on your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll come back to them at the end. So a quick intro to us. If you can just click on, Sarah.
Hello. Yep. Can you see me?
Yeah, can you just move on to
there
the
you
next?
Go. Yep.
There we go. So my name's Naomi. I'm the content marketing manager here at Sparkle, and I am very excited to be joined by Sarah, who is founder of Story-Led Marketing and is really an expert when it comes to helping brands tell their story. So I am confident that she's going to have some awesome insights and tips to share with you this afternoon for us, whatever time it is there. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Sarah to get into the meat of this session.
Thanks, Naomi, and hi everyone. It's lovely to be here. So I thought I'd start off by sharing with you the story of how I found out the secret formula for success in speaking and marketing. So it was back in 2015. I'd just taken my play to the Edinburgh Fringe, and someone said to me, Sarah, do you know the people that make the most money at the Fringe are the street performers? So I was fascinated. I went to watch them, saw what they were doing, and one day I plucked up the courage to go and ask one of the most successful ones about it. So I walked over the cobbles, put £10 in his hat, and I said, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, could you tell me the one thing that you do that you think is most important for making people give you money? And he looked at me and he looked around and he lowered his voice and he said, that'd be the Covent Garden Credo. I was like, what? He said, it's a 17th century credo that's been handed down from street performer since the 17th century. And he said, I shouldn't really tell you. I said, oh, please. And this is what he shared with me. This is the credo. Make 'em stop, make 'em stay, make 'em watch, make 'em pay. And he said, the thing is this, he said, even though we're entertaining people, we're still selling. And no matter what reason you're in front of your audience, whether it's in social media or you're speaking or on video, you're always selling. So today, what I wanted to do was share with you the 3 mistakes that I see stopping people from having success with this formula. But underpinning these 3 mistakes that I'm going to take you through is one big issue that I want to share with you first. And to do that, I need to tell you the story of Magic Mike. And no, I'm not talking about the film with Channing Tatum and the male strippers. I'm talking about Mike the chicken. Now, Mike was a chicken. He was in 1945. He lived on a farm. And one day the farmer thought, Mike's time has come. So he got an axe and he cut off Mike's head. And now sometimes when chickens have their heads cut off, when the blade touches the neck, it sends an electrical signal down to the legs. And sometimes they carry on running around, hence the term headless chicken. But Mike didn't just run around for a few seconds. Mike ran around for 18 months. You see, chickens have a big bit of their brain at the top of their necks, and the farmer had missed this bit. And so the reason I'm telling this story is because I so often see speakers and marketers running around trying to share their message without any strategy or direction. And so the most important thing is, before you share your message, is that you have clarity and connection built in, so that you know, have a clear understanding of the problem and solution, and what drives your customer. So the first thing I want to share with you is this: don't be like Magic Mike, running around without having that clarity and connection. That said, I'm going to take you through the big three now. So the first big mistake that I see is people failing to grab attention. And in order to share a bit more about that, we first need to take a look at the human brain. Now, our brains evolved in 3 stages. First, there came the reptilian brain, or the croc brain, or monkey brain, chimp brain, as it's called. And this is like our fight or flight mechanism. But every piece of information comes through that croc brain first. Then next came the middle bit of our brain, the limbic part, which is about deciphering social situations and emotions. And lastly, we have the neocortex, the newest bit, and that's about logic and reasoning. And so, as I said, every bit of information comes through our croc brain, and that acts like a bouncer. And it's checking out everything that comes through based on 3 criteria. Is it dangerous? Is it new and exciting, or is it complex? And it runs the programs. If it's not dangerous, the croc brain will ignore it. If it's not new and exciting, it'll ignore it. And if it's complex, then it'll paraphrase it and before it sends it up. So this leads me to the first big mistake, and I used to make it all the time. When I used to sit down and write pitches or scripts or speeches or whatever it was, I would sit down and I would use my neocortex to put it together. But it was being received by this croc brain. So it wasn't landing, and that's why we fail to get attention. So the big question is, how do you get attention? And this is where we need to tap into 3 triggers for attention. You may have heard of this before, but basically there are 3 things that drive our attention and our action. And they are fear, curiosity, and desire. And so we need to tap into these and use what I call lightning bolts to make our audience stop, like to shock them and make them go, what was that? And to stop them in their tracks. And lightning bolts, there are different types that you can use to sort of grab people's attention. They can be visual, so a photo or an image or an animation. They can be auditory, they can be props, and they can be questions and stories, of course, and statements. But they've all got to be provocative. They've got to poke your audience and grab their attention. You've got to tap into those triggers. They've also got to be relevant to your message. They can't be disconnected, or people are going to go, what was that all about? Sorry, clickbait. So you've got to be relevant, right? And then if you do use a question as a lightning bolt, as a hook, then you've got to resolve that and give them the answer by the end. So that's the first mistake. But stories are fantastic for lightning bolts, because stories really work with the croc brain, because if we use everyday concepts and people, it makes our message more relatable. Stories have that curiosity element to hook us in. We want to find out what's going to happen next. And because there's conflict and tension, there's that sort of fear and desire and curiosity all mixed together in one bag. So stories are really powerful lightning bolts. And now I want to talk to you about the second mistake. So we've made them stop. Now we want to make them stay. But in order to do that, we've got to make them care. And this is where a lot of people fall down. They don't make it important enough to our audience to want to stay and find out more. So we need, again, to tap into these triggers, fear, desire, and curiosity, in order to make them hang around. What we've got to do here is we've got to amplify whatever aspect of those that we're looking at, and create a burning platform that makes people go, this is important, I need to stay and hear this. Okay, so in order to do that, we've got to go beneath the surface of the problem that our audience or our customer is having, and to understand and peel back the layers to really uncover those fears, desires, and curiosity, so that we can amplify what they want most, what they want least, what they're afraid of, and the FOMO. So what are they missing out on? Okay, so how do we do that? Well, funnily enough, stories are also brilliant for this. You know, we can tap into it, and they don't need to be long. So here in one sentence, I've included all of those. Tony came so close to losing the most precious thing in his world because of the 3 huge business mistakes he was making. But now he's having the time of his life. Boom, we've got in there the most precious thing in his world. I'm not saying what it is, but suddenly your audience is relating to the most precious thing in their world. The 3 huge business mistakes nearly cost him that. So what are they? A bit of curiosity, and now he's having the time of his life. So it doesn't even have to be long video, long story, just one sentence. And then you go, I'm going to share these 3 mistakes with you. Boom. You've got them in, you're making them care. So mistake number 3, and I know we're going at pace, there's a lot to share, but hopefully you can watch the replay even to get this back. But yeah, the 3 big mistakes around, the 3rd mistake is to fail to make your message compelling. I'm going to go into all of these too. So what does make your message compelling? So you've got them to stop, you've got them to stay, now we need to make them watch and pay. And the first part of that is around your content and the delivery of that content. So there's 2 parts to any message in terms of speaking or marketing, and that's what you say and how you say it, what you say and how you deliver it. So really, really important. Secondly, the before and after, or the transformation. That's also what makes your message compelling. And then lastly, we've got to proactively dismantle objections. And if you can do that, you'll be a long way towards converting people to the sale. So let's have a look in a bit more detail. For your content and delivery, you've got to make it both stimulating and sticky. And videos and stories and humor are great tools to use in your content and delivery to do this. And there's some fantastic brands that you might have heard of that have used this combination of stories and humor to absolutely kill it with their sales. The first one, you may have come across Squatty Potty. The pooping unicorn. It's a great video. It went viral. It combined all the elements of story and humor, and that resulted in a 400% increase in retail sales and a 600% increase in online sales. And then you've probably heard of this company too, Dollar Shave Club. They had a video, again, fantastic one. If you haven't seen these, do go and check them out. And after just that video launched the brand and led them to, in 4 years, being sold for $1 billion. Amazing. So stories and humor together are so powerful. The other aspect then is the transformation. So a lot of people are too close to their thing, or they've got an expert mindset, and this is the problem underpinning this one. So in order to illustrate this, I want you to consider this question. Do you remember when we could all go on holiday? It seems like ages ago now. And we went to the travel agent, or we went to Expedia, and what were we buying then? What was it we were buying? Just have a think. You might even want to put it in the chat. I'm expecting that it's probably sunshine, or the experience, or a romantic break, or, you know, the beach. And you'd be right. When we go to the travel agent, what we're buying is this. We're buying the experience. But so many people make the mistake of talking about the plane. No one cares about the plane. No one cares about the features of your product or service. We don't care how it's delivered. We want the result. Okay, so that's what you need to avoid. You know, it is easy for us to get into this expert mindset. And because it's our baby, we care about these things, but our audience doesn't. And so in order to show the transformation, stories are also fantastic for this. They are a way to lead your audience to having that emotional buy-in. But they don't have to be long. And I've got an example here of how Weight Watchers use the transformational story in one photo. Kendra discovered her voice. minus £83. So right here, Weight Watchers are saying, if you follow our plan, you'll be able to live the dream you always wanted to. I'm not endorsing the message, I'm just showing it as a story of transformation. So you can do it even in just a photo, but stories are so powerful for showing transformation. And then the last part of making your message compelling is dismantling objections. And the point is this, right? No matter, you've got them to stop, you've got them to stay, you've got them to watch, you've got them to have that emotional buy-in to your product or service by sharing the results and the transformation. But even if they buy in emotionally, afterwards, straight away, they're probably going to have some objections come up. You know, the sort of thing we say, I can see that it's brilliant, but it won't work for me because I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm not technical, or I haven't got enough time or money. So what we've got to do is to proactively dismantle these. And do you do that now? I want you to think about, do you consider how to overcome these objections proactively? Because you should. And I want you to shift to seeing objections as opportunities. So objections are fantastic opportunities to reinforce the value of our offer, to de-risk someone saying yes, and also to use stories to break false beliefs. Because actually objections are just beliefs, and beliefs are stories that we've told ourselves over and over again. So if you can come up with a story to trump their story, either through your own experience or a case study, social proof, whatever it is, then you can dismantle that. And then it's about converting them to the sale. You'll be well on the way to doing that. And I remember working with a stylist who does colors once, and she was trying to persuade me to get my colors done. I said, the thing is this, right, I need to lose weight before I get my colors done. And then we realized that this was probably one of the biggest objections that she encountered, but she wasn't addressing it. So she said, the thing is, Sarah, if you get it done, you'll have so much more confidence, and you'll feel more motivated to change. And so I did my colors. It was true. And so I did a little video testimonial, and she began putting that out to dismantle that objection up front. So really, really important. And the last thing that I want to say around this is stories are not only amazing for making your audience stop, stay, watch, and pay, but one story has so many angles. As you probably know, when you watch a film, you and your partner can watch the same film and take different things away from that film. And it's the same with stories. So I told you the story of Magic Mike in the context of it being about marketers and speakers who haven't got clarity and connection in their message, running around like a headless chicken. But one of my students is using that same story to address, she works with company boards. And if a board isn't performing at the top, the company will run around like a headless chicken. So same story, different problem, different takeaway. So they're brilliant for using and repurposing. And I just wanted to, before we take questions, show you a video that we use in our business, assuming I can make it work, and it's actually using VideoScribe, because we love VideoScribe for telling stories, to showcase one of our products and talk about the problem. So I'll just see if I can play that for you now. And here it is.
I help people who I help entrepreneurs.
I help people who help people. Susan, it's your turn.
Now is your time, Susan. Let's shake things up a bit. Sometimes it's difficult to find the right words to get across the value of what you offer in an engaging way. And this can lead to a lack of confidence in sharing about your product or service. If you want your pitch to stand out and your audience to pay attention to your message, then we can help. Join the next Standout Pitching Bootcamp to discover how to get the clarity and connection into your message and leave with a pitch you're excited to share. Visit storyledmarketing.com to find out more.
There you go. I hope that was useful for you. And so hopefully I've convinced you that stories are the most powerful speaking and marketing tool you have for captivating and converting your audience. But you do need message clarity and connection before you share. So I hope you found that useful and maybe you had some aha moments there. And if you do want to find out more, there are 3 different ways here. So we have a free challenge. I have a podcast and we talk about this stuff all the time. And then, of course, there is the boot camp. But I'm going to hand back to Naomi now, and I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah. I think that was, as you said, a bit of a whistle-stop tour to brand storytelling, but I think there are so many nice nuggets of information in there that will just, as you say, get people thinking about the stories they're sharing as a business. So as we said, if you've got any questions, do put them in the question box there and we'll start answering those. One to kick things off is just, where do you think are the best places to find stories for your brand, Sarah? Where should you start looking and thinking to kind of get some of these nice stories?
Well, one of the big things, I'm all about authentic storytelling, and for me that means the best stories come from your personal experience. So we're in the challenge that we run, we ask people as a starting point questions about their life experience. So what was the best thing they got for Christmas? What was the biggest challenge that they had to overcome? And there's so many stories that we've got in our memory banks that we just need to recognize are valuable and can be used for these sort of problems and takeaways. And it's just about bringing those to the surface. But one of the most powerful stories that we have when we're in business is the why behind what we do. And that's called your origin story. So like Marvel use superhero characters all the time and share their origin stories, but it is one of the most powerful assets we have in business is our origin story. But everyday little anecdotes are fantastic. You know, I mean, that wasn't my story, Magic Mike, but it's something I read and I thought that would make a brilliant story to share. So everyday stuff, but your memory banks are probably the best source of stories.
We've had a comment about what if the sort of product or service you're marketing is on the more boring side. I guess there are still stories, like you said, that you can find digging into your personal experience rather than such literal things to do with your brand.
I don't believe that anything is boring. And one of the things, obviously couldn't talk about everything to do with stories today, but metaphors and analogies are brilliant tools for making things which are perhaps abstract or complicated or even perceived as boring, sexy and exciting. So I talk about the zodiac calendar, I think it's called. So it's basically making something, it's like this. It's just pulling something that's relevant and exciting and pulling it into linking it to your product or service. So that is like that. I can't remember if it's called the zodiac calendar, but the Big Bang happened on January 1st, and today is like December 31st. But I don't think there's anything that you can't make exciting. Health and safety, it's about risk, it's about danger, it's about saving lives. And it's just the context and the frame that you put around it. And analogies are fantastic for breaking it more relatable and concrete and exciting for people.
Perfect. We've just had another quick question from Jan, who's asked, where exactly is the podcast? If you want to just repeat.
Sure, it's called the Speaking Club Podcast, and it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, you should be able to find the Speaking Club.
Perfect. We've had another question about structuring stories. I know you've kind of mentioned different elements to include, but is there a sort of particular flow that you use to make sure that it is a compelling story from start to finish?
Yeah, I mean, there are kind of 2 structures that I particularly teach. One is what I call a snackable story, and that has an overarching structure of like problem, anecdote, takeaway. But within that, you do need to have like setting the scene in a few sentences and using specific details to make it relatable to people. So when I said in my story, I walked across the cobbles to put £10 in his hat, I talked about the cobbles, so you can start to sort of bring that to life. So definitely the context, and then the sort of what the character desires and the conflict. So definitely a beginning, middle, and end, but we want to get some emotion in there, and it's about sharing what you're thinking, feeling, and seeing, but very, you know, making it punchy as well. So again, creating imagery and bringing people into your world is one of the big things about stories. But you know, you need that start, middle, and end, but within that, bring in some emotion and imagery and drama. But it's not as difficult. They're your own stories, and they can be simple but still have all those elements within them.
Perfect. And another comment is on a slightly different topic, but it's about how can you increase confidence when you're speaking or presenting? Have you got any kind of quick tips to, I guess, if people are thinking about telling their story like verbally and in presentations?
So yeah, I mean, there are obviously some simple things, like you know, in terms of the, you know, where you stand, you know, the sort of mindset stuff beforehand, power poses and all that. But this, I think, I'm going to give you a mindset hack that works with my clients. And for me, this is the biggest shift that I see. When you're worrying about being judged, and there's nothing that any speaking coach can teach you about that will stop people from judging you. But what you've got to remember is that it isn't about you. It's about your audience and the message that you're delivering. So if you can shift from having what I call an about me mindset to a message-led mindset, so just understanding that you're just the vehicle for the message, and your job is to get that message to land in a way that's memorable and, you know, sticking, relatable, and just take you out of the picture. And I find that that really helps. You know, once people have that aha, actually the most important thing to me is that people get this message. And, you know, I just park our ego, which is what's causing us to worry, and just focus on being in the moment, connecting with my audience, and sharing the message authentically and powerfully from my heart. That seems to have a big impact on my clients and students.
Perfect. I think that is really good advice for anyone, whatever sort of stage of developing your public speaking or presentation skills is. Yeah, you can't worry about everyone's opinion. You've just got to get on with it and focus on what you're delivering. So I think that's perfect. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to everyone who has just left very lovely feedback for Sarah. I'll share that with you afterwards. But just, yeah, great to hear that people are enjoying this session and have found it useful. If you don't mind clicking on Sarah, we will just wrap up with some final notes on where you can find out more and obviously contact Sarah. We've got her email address on the screen there if you wanted to reach out to her directly. And also don't forget, Sarah's got a whole heap of resources that we will also share in the follow-up email if you wanted to check any of those out. And if you have any questions for myself or about Sparkle, VideoScribe, any of our products, you can find me on the email address there. I will get back to you as soon as I can, and any other questions and comments that came through that we've missed, we will pick up afterwards as well. But apart from that, thank you so much to Sarah for sharing your thoughts, and I think this has been a great way to wrap up the end of day one at Turn Up the Wow, and we hope to see you on another webinar, maybe tomorrow or later in the week soon. So
Thank you
you
so
again.
much from me as well for your attention.